welcome back to Never Enough Novels. It's time for another round of letting my TBR jar pick up my reads for the next month. So we're going to pick out 3 prompts for August and hopefully find some books from my physical TBR that match these prompts. If you need ideas for your own TBR list, I'm going to put a link to the blog post that I wrote down below in the description. I have more than 50 ideas for your own TBR jars, so you can check that out and hopefully get some new ideas. We're starting to get to the end of my prompts in this jar. I guess I started this last summer sometime, so we'll see what these last few have in store for us, and then I'll probably refill it before September. As always, make sure you're following along on my YouTube or following my podcast so that you can find out what I think of the books that I ultimately pick out for this month, and make sure you're getting all of my latest book recommendations. Okay, let's dive into the first prompt for August TBR. It is a book with a bakery or a restaurant. That is one of my favorite categories of books to read. I think it's so fun to read about books that are set at bakeries or restaurants. So let's see what we can find. The first one that jumped out to me right away is called The French Kitchen. You can tell from the title that this would fit right into that category. I'm really excited about this one. I just got it from Thomas Nelson, so huge thanks to them for sending it my way. It's a historical fiction book, so it's set in 2 different timelines, one during World War II in 1943 in Nazi-controlled northern France. And then the other timeline is about 10 years later in the early 1950s, and it features an expat who is now living in Paris and takes a cooking class led by Julia Child. The description says, as Paris rebuilds in the aftermath of World War II, Kat Fontaine never expected the skills she learned in a French chateau kitchen to be the key that unlocks the secrets swirling in her new post-war life. From the heights of culinary cuisine in 1950s Paris society to the underbelly of a World War II spy network embedded deep in Nazi-controlled France, and the spy backstory of the world's most famous French chef, Julia Child, The French Kitchen turns up the heat on the pasts of women whose worlds collide. I haven't read a World War II historical fiction book in a long time, and I absolutely adore anything with Julia Child in it, so I am really excited to see these 2 things combine, and I think this would be a great pick for this prompt. Usually I try and pick out at least 2 books that would fit each prompt, but I'm not seeing anything else on my TBR that has a bakery or a restaurant in it, which is kind of sad. So if you have recommendations for books that you love that fit those prompts, let me know because I always want more to read. So that means that The French Kitchen is going to win the day for this prompt for August. Let's do prompt number 2 for August. This one says, a book with less than 300 pages. Ooh, okay, so that's a pretty small number of pages. So we're gonna be looking for a pretty slim book here. Okay, this is one that I just got recently from Delacorte Press. It's called We Were Liars by E. Lockhart. And this is the first book in the We Were Liars series. And it was actually just made into a TV series on Prime Video. So that's why they're promoting these books again. This one has beautiful sprayed edges. So they're coming out with new editions of these. And I think this is like a YA mystery type series or thriller where something goes wrong on vacation and leads to this like really shocking conclusion. So I don't know much about this book, but I've heard that people just devoured these novels. And I've heard the TV show is actually really good as well. So on the back, it just says, we are Sinclairs. We live, at least in the summertime, on a private island off the coast of Massachusetts. Perhaps that's all you need to know, except that some of us are liars. So I think going into this one kind of blind is helpful because I don't want to know too much about the twist at the end and what actually happens during the summer on the island with a family of rich people. But that concept is great for summer, and it's always so entertaining to see what kind of the rich and famous or the rich and powerful do with their vacation time. Like, this book is only 250 pages, so it definitely is within this prompt. There's also a ton of really interesting content at the end. So there's like a which liar are you quiz. It also looks like there's an interview with the people who worked on the TV show, which is kind of cool. So I love that they included some bonus information in this new deluxe edition of this book. Also, as a reminder, I'm going to put the links to all of the books that I'm talking about today in my description down below. Again, these are affiliate links, so if you purchase anything from Amazon or Target through these links, it's no extra cost to you, and I earn a small commission, so it greatly helps in keeping this YouTube and podcast running. The only other book that I could find on my TBR that's less than 300 pages is called Murder on the Christmas Express by Alexandra Benedict. I know this is a book set during Christmas time, but it's never too early to start reading about the holidays. Plus, during the heat of summer, it might be nice to read about a train that derails in the snowy highlands of Scotland. So this one takes place in the early hours of Christmas Eve on the sleeper train from London to the Highlands. The train derails and it's now buried in snow in the middle of nowhere, and the passengers only have one another to rely on, but not all of them will reach their holiday celebrations. So a killer is trying to pick off the passengers one by one, but there's a former detective on board named Roz Parker who can't resist one last investigation in this locked room scenario. So over the course of the night, we're basically following along with Roz as she interviews passengers and tries to figure out who is killing off these people one by one. Ironically, I just started reading a different train locked room type thriller. This was called With a Vengeance by Riley Sager, but I ended up DNFing that one because it started off really slow as he was just introducing the different characters and why they were on board. So I'm hoping that this one will be a little bit more fast-paced and more enticing. The fact that it's only like 244 pages definitely makes this seem more appealing since you have a shorter amount of time to wrap up the story, and hopefully that will help keep the plot moving along. So out of these two options for books that were less than 300 pages, despite the fact that I do always love reading a Christmas novel, I'm probably going to go with We Were Liars this month. I am curious to watch the TV show since I've heard it was excellently done. And because of all the buzz around this book and what people were talking about with this ending, I'm very curious to see what it's going to be for myself. Let's do our final prompt for August then. This last one says, a book that fits the current season. Okay, so something that would be good for summer. That leaves it pretty wide open, which should be helpful. The first one I'm noticing is called Picture Perfect by Tessa Bailey. This is a softball sports romance from Tessa. So I feel like with baseball season going on right now, and I actually was just at a baseball game this past weekend, this fits well with the current season. So this is the next book in her sports romance series. All three other books have been incredible. They are fantastic, like spicy, really funny rom-com type books. So I have been dying for this next book in the series come out. It comes out in September. So this one features Boston Bearcats rookie, so hockey player, Robbie Corrigan. He's living the dream, he's made it to the NHL, and he's got his best friend as his roommate. The women of Boston love them both, and life is sweet until he meets Skylar Page, who is a Division I softball pitcher. She seems to be the only one who is immune to his charms. Robbie is dazzled by this pitcher, but Skylar pegs him as a player and wants nothing to do with him. Except Robbie discovers that Skylar is carrying a torch for her brother's best friend, and although he knows he should just leave her alone, he can't help but want to assist her on her romantic quest, even if it means giving her to another man. And he's hoping that the more time he spends with her, the more she'll realize that he isn't actually the person that she thinks he is, and maybe he'll have a chance himself. However, he ends up in this wild scenario where he agrees to be Skylar's fake boyfriend at an upcoming family wilderness competition where her crush will also be in attendance. So he's planning to coach her while they're both there together. And they set off on this series of contests that require them to trust each other. And over time, their fake relationship starts to feel a little bit more real. This is not the first fake relationship at a summer camp romance, which I've read this summer, and I don't know why that specific trope seems to be happening a lot, but I am so here for it, and I love anything that Tessa Bailey writes, so I know this is going to be another absolute hit. The next one I'm going to pick up as an option for this month is called If All Else Sails by Emma St. Clair, and I also got this one from Thomas Nelson, so a huge thank you to them. I figured this would be a good one because it takes place on the ocean during a little sailing trip, so again, that fits the season pretty well. So this is actually another somewhat sports romance. So it features Josie, who is a school nurse, and her brother's best friend, who is a hockey player named Wyatt. They end up being tricked into spending a summer together that is anything but smooth sailing. So Josie's brother sends her to a random address for their annual Super Summer Sibling Extravaganza, but she isn't in the right place. She ends up on a rundown cottage on the northern neck of Virginia, which is currently occupied by a hockey player that she knows and loathes. That hockey player is her brother's best friend and Josie's sworn enemy. Oh, and the reason that her brother sent her there is because Wyatt needs help recovering from his injury. This is not exactly how Josie expected to spend her summer, but the price her brother is offering is too good to resist. So she agrees to help drag this grumpy hockey player to physical therapy, even if it means sharing this quaint little murder cottage with him. Eventually, she finds out that he was actually supposed to sail the Intracoastal Waterway to Savannah and scatter his uncle's ashes along the way. And she surprises herself by offering to be Wyatt's first mate so that they can still make the trip. However, it is not smooth sailing, and they start to wonder if they'll be able to make it back home without killing each other first. I love that this one has a few tropes which I absolutely love, like the brother's best friend and forced proximity, since it sounds like they're spending time together not only in the small cottage at first, but then on a boat as they're sailing later on. So this one sounds really cute too. Out of both of these, which one fits the season better? And I'm looking forward to Picture Perfect by Tessa Bailey a little bit more, so I'm gonna pick this one this month. I can't wait to see what she does with her next sports romance. So that wraps up the 3 books that I'm picking from my TBR jar for August. I like that we have a little bit of a variety here. We've got We Were Liars, which is like a young adult thriller, The French Kitchen, which is more of a historical fiction novel, and Picture Perfect, which is a classic spicy romance. Let me know in the comments which books you would pick off of your own TBRs for these prompts, and stay tuned whenever I do my full book reviews at the end of the month.